You know, sometimes we go through things in life that leave us asking, why God? Why the heartbreak, the betrayal, the loss, the rejection? Why the closed doors and unanswered prayers? It's easy to start thinking that what we're going through has no meaning, that the pain we feel is pointless. But let me tell you something today. No struggle is wasted. Nothing you've been through, no matter how hard or how painful, is without purpose when you're walking with God. God doesn't allow anything in your life by accident. It might not make sense now. You might not see the bigger picture, but God is not random. He is intentional. Every tear you've cried, every night you've laid awake wrestling with your thoughts, every moment you felt like giving up, He saw it all and He's using it. There is something divine happening even in what you consider your darkest, most disappointing moments. We often think that struggle is a sign of failure, that if we're hurting, we must have missed God's direction. But let me shift your perspective for a moment. What if the struggle isn't punishment, but preparation? What if the very thing that's causing you pain is what's pushing you into your purpose? You don't develop strength on the mountaintop. Strength is built in the valley. It's built in the moments when you want to quit, but you get up anyway. In the times when nobody claps, nobody sees your efforts, and still you keep pushing. Those aren't wasted moments. That's where character is forged. That's where your foundation is laid. Some of you are in the fire right now, and you're asking God to take you out of it. But let me ask you, what if God is keeping you there not to destroy you, but to refine you? Just like gold has to go through fire to become pure, you're going through pressure so that the greatness inside you can rise to the surface. God doesn't waste pain. If He's allowing it, He's going to use it. He's going to use it to strengthen you, to mature you, to make you more compassionate, more wise, more resilient. You'll come out of this not just with survival, but with strategy. Not just healed, but with a heart that understands. Not just delivered, but developed. Sometimes the struggle feels lonely, doesn't it? You think nobody else understands what you're going through. But can I tell you something? There are people assigned to your voice, to your story, to your breakthrough. When you come through this, your testimony will speak to somebody else's storm. You're being positioned to lead others out of what you're in right now. It's not wasted. It might feel like it's breaking you, but it's really building you. The very thing that feels like it's taking you out is what God is using to bring you in. It's to your next level, your next assignment, your next breakthrough. But you've got to go through it. You can't skip the process. We love the idea of destiny, don't we? But we don't always love the process that gets us there. Destiny always comes with difficulty. There is no elevation without endurance. There is no crown without a cross. So instead of cursing your struggle, learn to bless it. Say, God, I don't understand it, but I trust you. I believe you're doing something with this. I believe that one day I look back and thank you for not removing me too soon. You're being shaped in ways you can't see right now. You're being prepared for things you're not even praying for yet. That broken relationship might be what taught you how to set boundaries. That job you lost might have made space for the opportunity that's coming. That season of isolation may have been what allowed God to speak to you without distractions. None of it was wasted. We serve a God who recycles pain. He takes what the enemy meant for evil and turns it for your good. He takes your mess and creates a message. He takes your wounds and turns them into wisdom. You don't have to understand it all right now. You just have to keep walking, keep trusting, keep believing that something beautiful is being birthed from your brokenness. I want you to know from the depths of your soul that everything you're facing right now is working together for your good. You may not see it yet, but you will. You'll come out stronger. You'll come out wiser. You'll come out with something you didn't have before, a deeper faith, a more unshakable trust, and a greater appreciation for who God is in your life. So don't despise your struggle. Don't run from it. Don't hide it. Embrace it as a part of your journey. Because even when it hurts, even when it doesn't make sense, God is still working. He's still writing your story, and no chapter is ever wasted in the hands of the author who knows the ending. Sometimes we think that if we're not being seen, we're not being significant, that if nobody's clapping, nobody's calling our name, and nothing is moving in the direction we hoped, then maybe God has forgotten about us. But I came to tell somebody today, growth happens in the dark. Some of the most powerful transformations in your life will take place when nobody's watching, when you feel hidden, isolated, and even overlooked. But just because you can't see what God is doing doesn't mean He's not doing something. A seed doesn't grow on the surface. It grows underground in a place where nobody sees it, where it's surrounded by dirt, pressure, and darkness. But under all that, something powerful is happening. Roots are developing. Foundations are being laid. The seed is getting ready to break through. And that's how God works in your life. He doesn't always show off His work while He's doing it. He forms you in the secret place. He prepares you when no one's watching so that when the moment comes, you'll be ready to stand in it. Some of you are in a season where it feels like nothing's happening. You've been praying, fasting, believing, and still nothing. It feels like silence. It feels like stillness. But that silence isn't the absence of God. It's the classroom of God. He's teaching you how to trust Him, not by what you see, but by who He is. Because if your faith can only function when everything's going right, it's not faith. Faith is believing in what you can't see, holding on to what He said, even when everything around you looks like the opposite. You see, the problem is that we've grown addicted to results. We want to see progress, to believe that we're making progress, but God isn't always going to give you evidence before He gives you the promise. Sometimes He'll speak a word over your life and then hide you, not to put, because there's some things that can't be developed in public. There are some lessons you won't learn on the platform. They have to be taught in the wilderness. You may feel like your prayers are bouncing off the ceiling, like you're stuck, like your life is in pause mode. But let me tell you what's really happening. Your roots are going deep. You're learning how to pray without applause. You're learning how to serve without recognition. You're learning how to trust without proof. And that kind of faith, that's the kind of faith God can use. There's a version of you that can only be born in obscurity. There's a strength that only comes from being stretched in silence. God is forming something in you that doesn't need validation from people because you've been validated by the process. And when the time is right, not your time, but God's time, He will bring you out, not before, not too early, but right on time. Don't resent the darkness. Don't despise the hidden place, because that's where your identity is clarified. That's where your motives are purified. That's where you learn to depend on God and not on applause. You're not being buried. You're being planted. And when the season shifts, and it will shift, you're going to bloom in a way that shocks people. You'll come out with fruit that lasts. because your roots were deep enough to sustain the weight of what God is putting on your life. God does his best work in the dark. Think about it. The greatest miracle in history happened in a dark tomb. Jesus didn't rise up in front of a crowd. He didn't stand on a stage. He got up in the quiet. He got up when nobody was looking. And maybe, just maybe, God is getting ready to resurrect something in your life. The same way, in the dark, in the quiet, in the place where no one sees it coming. The enemy wants you to believe that nothing is happening, so you quit before the breakthrough. But I dare you to keep going. I dare you to trust him when it's quiet. I dare you to praise him in the dark, because praise in the dark says, God, I believe you're still working. I believe you're doing something, even though I can't see it yet. That's the kind of faith that moves mountains. That's the kind of trust that produces fruit in every season. You might not have the spotlight right now, but you got the light of the world on the inside of you. You might feel overlooked by people, but you are not overlooked by God. He sees you. He knows where you are. And he's using this season to mold you, strengthen you, and prepare you for what's coming. So if you're in the dark right now, don't run from it. Lean into it. Let God finish what he started. Because what he bursts in the dark will shine brighter than you can imagine. And when the light comes, you'll realize that everything he was doing in private was setting you up for a public blessing you weren't even ready for yet. There's something powerful about going through a storm and surviving it. There's something sacred about walking through fire and coming out on the other side. Not just burned, but branded, marked, transformed. Because when you've lived through something, when you've faced trials that should have taken you out but didn't, when you've cried tears no one saw and prayed prayers no one heard, there's a depth in you that can't be taught in comfort. That's why I need you to understand this right here. Your test is going to become your testimony. What you're facing right now is not just about you. God is doing something bigger than you can see. The enemy would love for you to think that your pain is pointless, that your wounds are wasted, that your struggle is some kind of punishment. But the truth is, God is crafting a story out of your suffering. He's not just trying to get you through it. He's trying to bring something out of it. Have you ever noticed how the most powerful voices are the ones who have suffered the most? The people who can speak to your pain are the ones who've been there. They're not talking theory. They're talking testimony. They're not giving advice. They're sharing scars. And those scars, they're not signs of weakness. They're proof that you made it. They're evidence that God kept you when you couldn't keep yourself. Some of you have been asking, why me? But the real question might be, why not you? If you never went through heartbreak, how would you know the healing power of God? If you never got knocked down, how would you know the strength it takes to rise again? If you never suffered lack, how would you appreciate abundance? What you're going through isn't just shaping you, it's giving you something to say, something real, something authentic. People are drawn to authenticity. They don't want perfection, they want honesty. They want to know that someone else has been where they are and made it out. That someone else cried the same tears, felt the same fear, doubted the same things, and yet still believed, still held on, still found God faithful. That's what your testimony will do. It will be the key that unlocks somebody else's prison. Don't hide what God healed. Don't silence the story just because it's messy. God doesn't need perfect people. He needs willing people, available people, people who will say, I've been through it. but I'm still here. I didn't think I'd make it, but I did. And if God did it for me, he can do it. That's how you multiply miracles. That's how you take your test and make it a testimony. Your pain can either be a prison or a platform. You can let it shut you down or you can let it lift you up. You can keep quiet about it or you can speak life with it. I know it hurts. I know it's personal, but that's what makes it powerful. When you speak from experience, people listen differently. When you talk from the heart, lives change, chains break, hope rises, and that's what your story is going to do. You may not see it now, but one day you're going to meet someone who's in the same place you once were. And in that moment, you're not going to need a scripture or a sermon. You're going to speak from your soul. You're going to look them in the eye and say, I know how this feels. I've been there. And if I got through it, so can you. That's ministry. That's purpose. That's why the enemy fought you so hard, because he knew your survival would set somebody else free. You're not just a survivor. You're a soldier. You've got battle scars to prove it. You fought depression and kept going. You've battled anxiety and showed up anyway. You faced rejection and still kept loving. That's strength. That's grit. That's God's hand all over your life. And now you carry something that can't be taught. It had to be lived. So don't shrink back. Don't second guess your worth because you've been through some stuff. That stuff is what makes you valuable. That's what gives you credibility in the spirit. You're not here by accident. You're here because purpose kept you breathing when pain tried to bury you. You're here because there's somebody connected to your voice, your story, your breakthrough. When you open your mouth and share what God brought you through, walls will fall, chains will break, lives will change, not because of your perfection, but because of your transparency. Because somebody needs to know that broken people can still be used, that damage doesn't mean disqualified, that God doesn't throw away people. He rewrites their stories and puts them on display. So I want you to stop seeing your past as a burden and start seeing it as a bridge that others will cross because you were bold enough to speak up. A bridge that leads people from despair to hope, from bondage to freedom. Your life is a message. Let it speak. Because when it's all said and done, the very thing that tried to break you will become the thing that blesses others. Trusting God is easy when everything's working out. It's easy to praise Him when the doors are opening, when the bank account is full, when the relationship is strong, when the path ahead is clear. But the real test of trust, the true measure of faith, is what you do when none of it makes sense, when the prayers seem unanswered, when the people you counted on walk away, when the dream starts to feel like a burden and not a blessing. That's when trust becomes more than a word. It becomes a decision, a choice, a fight. Because let's be real, there are moments when trusting God hurts. Moments when you say, God, I know you're good, but this doesn't feel good. Times when you have to let go of what you wanted so you can hold on to what God knows you need. It's in those painful places that your faith gets refined, not in the comfort, but in the chaos. Not on the mountaintop, but in the valley. Some of you are there right now. You're trying to smile, but it's heavy. You're showing up, but your heart is tired. You're still lifting your hands in worship, but behind closed doors, you're asking God, are you still with me? And the answer is yes. He's with you right in the middle of the confusion, right in the heartbreak, right in the delay. He hasn't left. He hasn't turned his back on you. He's walking with you through the fire. But here's the thing. Sometimes he doesn't take the pain away. Sometimes he lets you walk through it so you can learn to lean on him like never before. See, trust isn't real until it's tested. And it's not trust if you need proof. That's not faith, that's control. But when you can't trace God and still choose to trust him, that's faith. When you don't know how it's going to work out, but you keep moving forward anyway, that's trust. When everything inside you wants to give up, but you decide to hold on, that's the kind of belief that heaven honors. We love to quote scriptures about God's faithfulness, but we don't always talk about the waiting. We don't talk about what it feels like to be in that space between promise and fulfillment, that space where doubt creeps in, that space where fear tries to speak louder than faith, but it's in that in-between place that your relationship with God is strengthened. It's in that waiting room that you learn to worship without a breakthrough, to pray without a yes, to believe even with no evidence. You have to understand, God sees the whole picture. You're looking at a puzzle piece, but he's looking at the completed design. And sometimes he's protecting you from things you were praying for. Sometimes he's saying no to the job because the door you really need is still being built. Sometimes the delay is not a denial, it's divine timing. But when you're in the middle of it, it feels like punishment. It feels like rejection. But don't let your feelings lie to you. God's delays are not denials. His silence is not absence. You've got to decide that your trust in God is not conditional, that your faith doesn't expire when the answer takes longer than you expected, that even if the healing doesn't come right away, even if the door doesn't open yet, even if the promise seems far away, you're still going to trust him. You're still going to declare that he's good, not because of what he gives, but because of who he is. It takes strength to trust when you're bleeding. It takes courage to believe when you're broken. And that kind of faith, that kind of stubborn, unshakable trust, that's what builds spiritual giants. That's what separates casual believers from committed disciples. That's what says, God, even if you don't move the mountain the way I hoped, I still know you're able. I still know you're faithful. I still know you're for me. This walk is not about convenience. It's about commitment. It's about trusting when it's uncomfortable, obeying when it's inconvenient, and believing when it's unclear. That's the level of faith that God is calling you to. Not a shallow faith that's only anchored in blessings, but a deep-rooted faith that stands in the middle of the storm and says, I still believe. You've cried, but you're still standing. You questioned, but you're still here. You've lost some things, but you haven't lost your mind. That's faith. That's trust. That's proof that even when it hurt, you didn't give up. And if you've made it this far, God didn't bring you this far to leave you now. You're closer than you think. The breakthrough is coming. The shift is on the way, but God needs to know, can you trust him in the waiting? Can you trust him when there's no spotlight, no applause, no visible sign of progress? Can you trust that he's working even when it feels like nothing's moving? Because real faith says, even when I can't see it, I know he's good. Even when I don't feel it, I know he's near. Even when I don't understand it, I know he's in control. So keep trusting, even when it hurts, because the pain you're walking through today is preparing you for the promise you're about to step into.